So yesterday I finished building all of the stand frames for the 180s, or at least the first 6. And then I moved on to the single most important room that this gallery is going to have. But before we get to that, I just kind of want to show you what these look like out here. It's really starting to feel like something out here, guys. It's really starting to, come to fruition, and it's just going to be absolutely amazing. But we're starting to get an idea of as well as the flow of the room and what it's going to look like. The first tank out here is technically going to be the 700, but when it comes to these stands, they will all have 180 gallon tanks, for those that don't know, which are 6 feet long, 2 feet tall, 2 feet wide. This I still got to wrap the stands as well. Yeah, so might as well mention that they're not going to look like this. I'm going to wrap them in wood, plywood on top with some styrofoam to absorb any irregularities, and most likely paint them black to match the floor, because I want the attention to be drawn to the tanks, and I don't really need a lot of attention put on the stands themselves. Something a lot of people wonder is, like, what's it going to look like when there's people in between them? I gotta say, plenty of room. I'm of course going to bolt these stands to the wall so they can't be bumped or tipped over, but I mean, if you did tip over, I don't know anybody that can accidentally tip over 2,000 pounds, but it is what it is. We're going to bolt them to the wall anyway. So I know a lot of people still aren't sold on this idea of the tanks coming out like this. I think it's absolutely incredible way to do things. The backgrounds will be on the back, and then we can skate the entire area so you can look at it all the way around. Now, when I was out feeding the fish today, I was thinking about the Lake Tanganyika tank, and what I was thinking, and you'll have to, kind of be patient with the envisioning this, but perhaps we'll have rocks, large rocks, probably jagged, falling down from the back, and at the front, more of a beach area, and that is where the shell dwellers can go. So when you walk up to this tank, for example, you can really just see the shell dwellers from every angle, and I've never been able to do that before. I'd love to have a walk around tank like that to be able to see things, but that's the excitement of these types of tanks and them going like this, is it opens up new possibilities and different ways to do things, and I think that's going to be really, really fun. As for the other tanks, 700 is the first tank that's going to come in here, and then we'll have the 180s, the 375. These tanks over here, as you can see on the floor where I kind of mapped them out, I'm not completely sold on them coming out from the wall like that, but when I build the stands, I'll figure out exactly where I want everything. The other thing I got to build, and is the second most important thing, is the water changes. I got to make sure that are easy to do and incredibly efficient and fast. I don't want to be spending hours a day, every day, doing water changes. I want to do every tank in 2 hours type of thing. And this holds about, between the two of them, they're 275 gallons each, so that's about 550 gallons. That'll allow me to do about a 20% water change on absolutely every tank that's marked off on the floor. Not every tank that'll ever be out here, but just so far what's marked out on the floor, it will allow me to do about a 20% water change. And I'll most likely do that every 4 days. But what I got to do is build a mount to go up there out of 4x4s. And you guys will remember, this is actually a stairway that goes down in the basement over there. So I was checking to see what was up here, and it is solid board. But if we look in the back there, see these holes there, and then the sawdust around it? I was drilling into the wall to find out what's back there, and it's just solid, thick wood. And this here is, real solid wood as well. But I don't want the weight to be on this. I'm going to bolt 4x4s all to the walls and build a frame, almost like a stand, all the way to the floor. And the weight of these containers will be transferred to those 4x4s instead of depending on the wall to hold them up. We'll see how that goes, though. Well, I guess there's only one way to find out if it's going to be successful or not. It's fine. I've already gone over the numbers. It's definitely going to hold this type of weight. So yeah, water changes. Then I'm going to connect the two down here and a ball valve in the middle, which I can open whenever I have a tank that I want to fill, and it'll just gravity feed, because we're coming down from like almost 8 feet in the air, 7 feet in the air, down to the tanks. It's going to drain it with 1.5-inch hose, super fast. I'll be able to drain both of these tanks in like under an hour, easily, like 20 minutes, something like that. So that's, and because I'm on treated water or town water, I fill these up, put air stones in them, treat the water. Pretty straightforward. I mean, if I really want to get crazy, I'll build some sort of a carbon filter of some sort to remove the chlorines and whatnot, but for the most part, I'm just going to treat it regularly. Also, I might even see how long it takes me to dissipate the chlorine, because if I keep the caps off and I aerate the water, that aeration and oxygen exchange at the surface dissipates the chlorine, but how long would it take? That's an interesting thing. So maybe I'll see how long it takes to dissipate the chlorine naturally versus treating. And if I can dissipate the chlorine in like 2-3 days, I probably won't even have to treat the water. I could probably just aerate it and within 3 days type deal, do my water changes. Anyway, single most important thing that I want to talk about today and show you how I built. Like, I'm already bringing backgrounds in here, and this, I've only got 4 in here right now, and they got to be cleaned up. But this is my quarantine, hospital, breeding / fry setup. I got to put in 2 more, but this is, I was a little nervous building this because I'm going to show you how I built it here in a second. But if you guys remember, I already built a massive racking system to hold tanks way bigger than this. We did it with a pair of 225-gallon acrylic tanks that I built, and then I built a rack out of 2x6s. So the design is essentially identical, and if that design will hold a pair of 240-gallon tanks or 225, I can't remember what they were, they're definitely going to hold, 120 gallons up there, and down here it's like half the size, so no problem at all. I still got to clean the tanks up, install their backgrounds, filtration, lids, clean the tanks, and that sort of thing, but they'll be run on sponge filters most likely, and we'll get to that here in the near future. But this was definite must. And this bathroom here that used to be the female bathroom, it's the quarantine hospital area. I'll most likely bring in food. I was thinking about taking these out, but I don't know if I want to replace them. If I do, maybe I'll have a rack here for all the food and storage and that sort of thing. But this place will be off bounds for the most part, unless it's like a fan or something like that really wants to come back here and see it, then of course, who am I to say, no, you can't come see these things. But yeah, this was a definite must, and turned out really, really nice. Anyways, here's how I did it. Well, I forgot that the studio isn't really set up right now. I still got to hook up the microphones and everything, but we'll do it this way. So this is not any different than a regular build would technically be. We're connecting with the 2x4s with butt joints. The stand itself is about 11 feet long, and butt joints means like 2 pieces just put together like this, and then a couple screws. It holds it together fine. There's no twisting or anything. When it comes to an aquarium stand, all the weight is just being pushed straight down and transferred through the wood. None of the weight is technically on the screws. Screws are just holding it together. Some people like to glue it together and whatnot, but starting off with the 2 bottom bases was the easiest part. Moving past that was creating the little tiny legs. I wanted these tanks to be elevated off of the ground as much as possible, so I'm able to do water changes via gravity. And if they're too close to the floor, it's just too difficult to do. This isn't like a public space either, so I don't need to worry about how they look or vision, or when you're standing in front of them, what do they look like, etc. This is a quarantine hospital type area. It's not necessarily needs to be pretty, it just needs to be functional. The legs were interesting though, I think they're off the ground by about 4 inches total, and then the 2x4 itself is 3.5 inches, so that's 4, 5, 7.5. So I got about 8 inches off the floor total, which is fine because I'll just drain into the shower right beside them. But yeah, all of this goes together just like a typical regular stand. Essentially just look at the design and you can kind of figure it out. But yeah, again, a very straightforward project. It took about an hour to cut it up and put it together. The dimensions of it is, I believe the whole thing is 11 feet. It's 5 feet tall with this tank on it. So without the tank, like less than 4 feet, 42 inches tall. And then 19 inches wide. I built everything so the tanks can fit in there and have a 1/2 inch all the way around. And the tanks themselves sit on the 2x4s. Since the 40-gallon tanks that I put on there have lips underneath them, like you can get your fingers under there, I only need to worry about supporting the perimeter of the tank. I don't need to have plywood or anything in the middle because nothing is literally nothing's going to touch that. So I just want to make sure this all the 2x4s can not only fit it, but they're also flat and they're not wobbling around or anything like that, because if a tank's wobbling, once it fills up, it's going to twist, and that's when a tank breaks. So that's pretty much the only thing you want to worry about. Not being level is pretty common, but if the tank is like wobbling, that's when you have to figure things out and fix it. And a lot of the times it's just 1 or 2 cuts cut wrong, or the board's bent, or it's annoying to fix, but it can be done. Anyways, this is a project that I'd like to see more. Well, when the price of wood goes down, I'd like to see more fish rooms done like this in terms of building out a 2x4 framing. Although, I mean, if you need other options and you don't have any tools, I've shown you guys how to take cinder blocks and boards and make stands out of that. We've built stands out of darn near everything. I mean, I built a 540-gallon tank and the whole stand was just cinder blocks, you know, so it was easy to put together and of course easy to take apart. But this is just another project I think that, you know, many of you guys could benefit from, especially if you are planning on setting up a fish room. You definitely want a quarantine system. And, well, that's mine. So like I was saying, it's the exact same design as absolutely every other stand that I build, except when I wanted to have legs on it, I just have to put these tiny little supports down here, as opposed to not having them. But yeah, everything just lines up to the support systems. Now, each one of these 2x4s will support about 800 pounds. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We have a dozen of them, which means this is gonna hold, I don't know, 10,000 pounds almost, and we're not even coming close to that. I think we're putting on, you know, a couple thousand on each level, if that. So incredibly strong, and I don't need it to support that much. That's just what these 2x4s in this design's actually gonna end up being able to support. So I mean, I don't think everybody needs a racking system like that, but I do believe everybody needs to properly quarantine their fish. And I don't mean, you know, it's that one time, you might have bought fish in your whole hobby, been in the hobby for years, never ever had a problem adding a fish to a system. It's gonna be that one time when you do, and it wipes out the whole tank or the entire tank gets ick. So like I said, you just never know. But I have shown you guys many different ways to quarantine or hospitalize your fish, including just using a Rubbermaid tote. So you don't have to necessarily have a whole tank up and running. I mean, you could just have a sponge filter always in your main aquarium, maybe hide it behind a rock or whatever, but it's running and it's always cycled and ready to go. Toss that into a Rubbermaid container for your new fish, or, you know, hospitalized fish that are injured, some fry, whatever the case might be. You always have an option. Maybe your tank leaks, etc. You always have, you know, backup plan. Oh, also, if you guys like these shirts and this merch that I wear, look at this arowana. It goes all the way around me. Super cool. Link is in the description. Go ahead and get one or whatever you want. There's tons of new designs now. I also just had the ability to take control of the pricing, because at one point the supplier, when they set the pricing and all of that, but now I get to do it, and I dropped all the prices by like 20, 30, 40%. Full disclosure, if you get something, I only make about $4 off of it. It's not like I'm getting rich off it, but it does help and it contributes to the aquarium gallery. So go get yourself some merch, and I'll see you guys in the next video.